Hello friends, welcome to the Agriculture channel. So today we are going to cover one important part that is related to weed management, that is herbicide resistance. So before coming to the herbicide resistance, first of all we have to understand what is the difference between herbicide resistance and herbicide tolerance. Coming to the herbicide resistance, it is the inherited ability of a plant or biotype to survive and to reproduce following exposure to a dose of herbicide which is normally lethal to the wild type. So we have to remember two to three things. First of all, it is the inherited ability, and what is the ability? Ability to survive and reproduce though we are applying herbicide, and this herbicide dose is normally lethal to the wild type. So coming to the herbicide tolerance, it is also the inherited ability of a species to survive and reproduce after an herbicide treatment. So what is the difference? The difference is here we can see the difference. So coming to the herbicide resistance, this is herbicide resistance. Suppose I am applying one herbicide H1 and that suppose the dose is some x kg AI per hectare. So this is the given dose and this is the herbicide example, that is H1. So in the first year, suppose I am applying the herbicide and all the weeds are getting killed. In the second year also all the weeds are getting killed. But in the as you are applying the herbicide in a continuous manner, there might be a chance that some of the weeds may survive. So after continuous application of these herbicides, some of the herbicides will get develop some resistance and they are able to survive and reproduce, while these weeds or the natural wild types are lethal to the herbicide in earlier cases. So this is called as the herbicide resistance. But coming to the herbicide tolerance, so though here in the weeds are there and you are applying that herbicide H1 and the dose is also x kg AI per hectare and you are applying these herbicides, but still they will not affect over the weeds. That means the weeds are not at all affected by the herbicide application, when whether it is the first year, whether it is the second year, whether it is the third year. So in this case it is called as the herbicide tolerance. The weeds are called as herbicide tolerant weeds. But in the herbicide resistance weeds, initially the weeds are very much susceptible, and due to continuous application of the same herbicides with the same dose, which leads to the herbicide resistance development in the succeeding years. So coming to you can see here, because of the continuous herbicides, some of the wild types, this is wild types are lethal and they become killed by the herbicides. But there are some weeds which becomes developed some resistant against the herbicide. So herbicide resistance, it is nothing but the decreased response of the population of a weed species to a herbicides than what expected or achieved earlier. Whatever in earlier cases the weeds are susceptible, but right now the weeds developed resistance, which is mainly because of long and a continuous application of herbicide with the same dose, also. So either by this development of the resistance against the herbicide, it can be developed by either by means of natural selection or by means of genetic change, which is called as the genetic engineering or genetic manipulation, or in some cases we can also develop the resistance by means of tissue culture. Okay, but in case of herbicide tolerance, it is only by means of natural selection. It is naturally the weeds are tolerant to certain herbicides. There is no selection. We cannot select these herbicide tolerant weeds either by means of genetic manipulation or by means of your tissue culture. So this is the difference between herbicide resistance and herbicide tolerance. So basically the thing is that herbicide resistance is slowly developed. It is slowly developed with time, but natural tolerant, it is already present in the weed. It is already present inside the gene of the weed. Okay, so now coming to the history part, coming to the history of the herbicide resistance, the first in the world, the first resistant weeds, that is resistant biotypes which is resistant against triagens, there is Senecio vulgaris, and it is the common name is common ground cell, and it is first detected in USA in 1970. So if in the exam it will be asked that which one is the first biotype resistant to triagens, or the first herbicide resistant weed, that is Senecio vulgaris, and it was detected at USA 1970. Coming to India, the Phalaris minor, as you know that Phalaris minor is associated with of the wheat. So Phalaris minor has also developed in 1993. It was reported that Phalaris minor was resistant against the isoproteron herbicides. Basically, these isoproteron herbicides is mostly or common, we can say commonly used or commonly preferred by the farmers, as it can be the nature is the wider window application. Means isoproteron it can be applicable as pre-emergence as well as for the post-emergence. That is why it is isoproteron has been a tailor-made herbicide. This is also called as tailor-made herbicide. Tailor-made herbicide because of its wider window of application. So, with respect to exam point of view, herbicide tolerance is inherited ability and it is present already inside the weed gene. But herbicide resistance, it is earlier susceptible. It is early, you can say it is earlier susceptible, but due to continuous use of the herbicides for a long period of time, it develops some resistance. And the examples are in case of world Senecio vulgaris, and with respect to India, Phalaris minor. So there will be two indicators. There will be two indicators for normally for with respect to pest. We go for pest resistance with resistance against the pesticide. So pesticide basically we are classified into basically we can go for either insecticide, or we can here also go for herbicide. So there will be two terms, that is one will be resistance index or another will be resistance factor. So resistance index, that is LD50, that is lethal dose. LD means lethal dose. LD50 based upon mortality of insect or insect number or mortality rate of insect population. So whenever we are considering the insect, that is we can go for entomology with respect to pest insecticide resistance. So whenever we are going for insecticide resistance, then we are using the factor, that is LD50 ratio, that is resistance index. So here LD50 ratio means what is the lethal value or lethal dose of LD50 value for resistant population divided by LD50 value for susceptible population. This is for entomologist. But this is that basically resistance index is for entomologist, whereas resistance factor it is for your agronomist. Okay, so resistance factor which is related to the GR50. Basically it is this is GR50 ratio. This is GR50 ratio. There is growth retardant. There is the growth rate 50%. So here percentage of inhibition of dry weight of the weed will be taken account. So here resistance factor will this is LD50 lethal dose 50, but here it is GR50. There is growth retardant value. So here GR50 ratio means GR50 value of the resistant population and GR50 value of the susceptible population. So here the value of LD50 or GR50, it should be more than 1. So if it is more than 1, then it can be recommendable. So you can recommend those herbicides whose GR50 is more than 1. You can recommend those insecticide whose LD50 is more than 1. So they both are generally express the level of resistance developed in the species of insects or plants in the course of time. So this is the value of either you can go for insecticide resistance, or you can go for weed resistance or herbicide resistance. Then coming to types of resistance. So there are commonly 6 types of resistance. First one is a single herbicide resistance. It is also called as simple resistance. Then coming to cross resistance, then negative cross resistance, which is also called as collateral sensitivity. Then multiple resistance, fifth one is reverse resistance, sixth one is co-resistance or compound resistance. So one by one we will cover the types of resistance. So first of all we are coming to single herbicide resistance, which is also called as simple resistance. So resistance due to this is a very simple resistance. So the normally we have already seen that if we are applying the same herbicide continuously and the dose remains same, then the weed develop resistance against the herbicide. So this is called as the single herbicide resistance. So resistance due to a continuous exposure of a weed to a given herbicide. So now after some long period of use, the resistance will be developed. So now this simple resistance is of two types. One will be either the weed is completely resistance, weed has developed complete resistance, which is also called as full resistance, or there may be partial resistance. So complete resistance means, so here in the field the weeds are present and you are applying the herbicide, but there will be not at all affected, this is the thing. The weeds are not at all affected. That not at all affected means normal vegetative growth will be happen, as well as normal reproductive growth will be happen. All the vegetative growth as well as the reproductive growth all becomes normal. Hence they are easy to survive and reproduce. This is the inherited ability of the weed. But coming to the partial resistance means coming to the, so whenever we are coming to, so this is so suppose this is your the field. So here at the vegetative stage the weeds become severely affected. So there will be inhibition of the vegetative growth, but whatever the reproductive growth, it is somewhat possible and they can give flower as well as the seed. That means reproductive ability is somehow managed in case of partial resistance, whereas the vegetative growth part is severely affected. This is called as partial resistance. Then coming to second one, that is cross resistance. Cross resistance means very easy to remember. That means a weed species which is already resistant to a herbicide, which will show resistance to other herbicides either of the same chemical class, or a weed species shows two or more herbicides due to a single resistance mechanism. So there will be two things. Cross resistance means what? Cross resistance means a weed will develop resistance to a herbicide. Already a weed is resistant to a herbicide, and this weed also resistance against other herbicides of the same chemical class. For example, Lolium rigidum. Already it is resistance to dinitroaniline chemicals group. You know dinitroaniline groups. So this dinitroaniline, which is the chemical class, all the herbicides which will come under dinitroaniline, they becomes a resistance, and this resistance was reported in the Lolium rigidum. And this is mainly because of a single resistance mechanism, what we have already seen. This is because of the enhanced metabolism. Then coming to another definition of the cross resistance, that is a weed species shows two or more herbicide resistance of different chemical class. So basically here we have to remember one weed develop resistance against different types of herbicides, whether these herbicides are of same group or different group, but it should be due to single resistance mechanism. So for example, we can see Phalaris minor is resistance to isoproteron. Phalaris minor is resistant to isoproteron, and it also developed resistance against phenoxaprop p-ethyl. Whereas coming to the isoproteron, this isoproteron is coming under the group that is phenyl urea. And whereas coming to that is phenoxaprop p-ethyl, or we can go for diclofop diclofop methyl. This is diclofop methyl. It comes under the group that is aryl oxyphenoxy propionic acid. So you can see there is different groups of herbicides. Okay, so finally, so here cross resistance means the weed which is already developed resistance against one herbicide, it can also be resistance against the other herbicides either of same group, or of different group. So this is the important part we have to remember about the cross resistance. And if we will see the first one, lolium rigidum, either same group, that is dinitroaniline. So next, coming to this cross resistance is of two types. This cross resistance is of two types. The first one will be the metabolic cross resistance, and the second one will be the target site based cross resistance. So metabolic cross resistance means resistance of, this is the same definition will be there, resistance against two or more herbicides either of similar group or dissimilar group due to similar metabolic degradation process or similar rate of degradation. Okay, whatever the degradation process, it will be same or as well as the similar rate of degradation. So for example, metabolic resistance cross resistance occurs in phallus minor against the isoproteron as well as the diclofop methyl, and it is because of the similar metabolic process of degradation as well as the similar rate of degradation. Okay, and coming to target site based cross resistance, so here resistance to two or more herbicides either of similar or dissimilar group inhibiting the same target site. That means whatever the herbicides which are having the similar target site, suppose triazine, phenylureas, you can say uracil, all these herbicides have the they will inhibit the photosynthesis at pH2 site. So as the site of these herbicides group is same, hence these will develop cross resistance. Okay, and here the definition again I am repeating. So cross resistance means, so here I am writing the cross resistance means a weed will develop resistance against different group of herbicides, different groups of herbicides of same group, different herbicides of the same group due to a single mechanism. For example, dinitroaniline, lolium rigidum, it will show dinitroaniline resistance against dinitroaniline. Dinitroaniline examples, dinitroaniline. What are the examples? The examples are, you can see the fluchloralin, there is pendimethalin. Fluchloralin is a pre-plant incorporated herbicide. Pendimethalin is normally used for pre-emergence herbicide. So either of same group or of different group, different group means here the phallus minor, it has developed resistance against isoproteron, which is the group under phenylurea, as well as it will also develop for against the diclofop methyl, which is under group the aryl oxyphenoxy propionic acid. Okay, but the mechanism should be either a single mechanism, either it can go for same metabolic degradation process and same rate of degradation, or it can go for the all the herbicides having the same target site. So target site or based or cross resistance. Then the next one is negative cross resistance, or which is also called as collateral sensitivity. It is very easy. So a weed biotype shows resistance to one herbicide or a chemical family of herbicides shows higher or increased sensitivity or susceptibility to other herbicide than its natural wild type susceptible population. So for examples, here we can see Echinoclea crossgali. Echinoclea crossgali has already resistant against the atrazine. One Echinoclea crossgali biotype is resistant against the atrazine, but at the same time it is very susceptible against cethoxidime. against cethoxidime as well as the fluazipobutyl. So in one time it is a resistance against one herbicide. At the same time it is very much susceptible or hypersensitivity. It is also called as hypersensitivity or increased sensitivity against other herbicides like cethoxidime and fluazipobutyl. Okay, but so you can see the difference between cross resistance as well as the negative cross resistance. Okay, cross resistance means so a weed species develop resistance against one herbicide, simultaneously it is also developed resistance against another herbicide. But here the weed species at one time it is resistance against one herbicide resistant, but at the same time it is susceptible against the other herbicide. Then coming to multiple resistance. So multiple means you can see because of the multiple mechanism. So earlier whatever we have seen the cross resistance, it is because of the single mechanism, but multiple resistance it is because of the two or more distinct resistance mechanism. The weed species will develop resistance to the herbicides of different chemical classes. So here multiple resistance means the weed already has developed resistance against the different classes having different mode of action. Okay, so here the first multiple resistance is reported in Australia. There is Lolium rigidum. Again, it is also reported in Europe. There is the weed is Allopecurus mysuroides. So you have to remember which one is the first reported multiple resistance developed weed. That is the Lolium rigidum. Then coming to last two, there is one will be reverse resistance. So reverse means what? So a weed biotype resistant to a herbicide falls susceptible to the very herbicide if it is not used for a period of 7 to 10 years. For example, if I will say, suppose let us we are taking the Phalaris minor. Suppose I am taking a weed that is Phalaris minor. As I have already know that Phalaris minor has already developed resistance against isoproteron. But suppose in Phalaris minor is a associated with of wheat field. So initially suppose what I will do for 7 to 10 years, I am not applying the isoproteron in wheat field. So in wheat field though Phalaris minor is present in the wheat field, but for a long term of period for 7 to 10 years I will not use the isoproteron. So instead of isoproteron I can use other herbicides. So nowadays we are using other herbicides except the isoproteron. So again after 10 year if I will use the isoproteron, so now the Phalaris minor become susceptible. So now the Phalaris minor can be controlled. So this is called as the reverse resistance. So I will say again that is reverse resistance means suppose so today the weed is resistance against one herbicide and you are not using these herbicides for the long term period that is 7 to 10 years. So now after 10 years might be there is a chance that weed becomes susceptible to the very herbicide. It is called as the reverse resistance. Then coming to co-resistance or compound resistance. Co-resistance means whenever you are applying two or more herbicides concurrently or simultaneously or together, whenever you are applying two herbicides, both mixing partner herbicides in a ready mix form, two herbicides of different mode of action, then the weed develop resistance against the herbicides, against both herbicides. For example, Lolium rigidum has already developed resistance against the concurrent application of amitrol and atrazine. Okay, so here a weed develop resistance against both the mixing partner herbicides having different mode of action. This is called as co-resistance or compound resistance. So this is the type of resistance. In the next class we will study about the factors affecting resistance development. Thank you.